my family because we were handing out food to all the frontline people earlier today. So I just want to say thank you for pushing this interview.
Of course. Thanks for having me on here, and I'm glad that you and your family were able to give back to the community. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's been a while since I talked to you. I think the last time was like when I called in when you were doing this, when you guys were doing live shows. But I think that was the last time. But before we get started, how are you and your family doing?
We're all doing great. Thanks for asking. Everyone's healthy, and everyone survived coronavirus, which is great. My grandparents both survived it too. So everyone's recovered. How's your family?
Good. Just trying to stay active and obviously helping out, and then stay active, especially with my workouts in the house, and busy with this podcast, rolling through all these interviews. So crazy.
Oh, that's awesome. Good for you.
Thank you.
With these podcasts, too, and these interviews, you do an awesome job.
Thank you. So for the viewers who just joined, can you explain, like, your background a little bit and when you got interested in the sports industry?
Yeah, so I actually got interested in the sports industry back in 2003 when the Yankees actually lost to the Marlins in the World Series. I remember that was kind of the moment it sparked for me that I wanted to do this. So when I got old enough and I started interning at local newspapers in high school, started networking and meeting people, and then in college, that's what I majored in, was broadcast journalism. When I went to Penn State for 2 years and Syracuse 2 years, and I interned for the New York Yankees, which was awesome. It was a great experience. And then I started working in local news. I did that for about 3 years in North Carolina. And now I ended up at Sports Grid, which has been amazing. In October, it'll be a year.
Yeah, so how's it working with Gabe and Joe and Sean, Jared, the whole crew pretty much? How's it working like with them?
Oh, they're all awesome. Gabe, you never know. Every day is a fun adventure with Gabe. Yeah. He's always so fun to, I always say you don't need coffee when you wake up with Gabe in the morning shows. And Jared and Joe, they're both, just as Gabe is, they're both super knowledgeable people. Joe has been doing a lot of work actually behind the scenes at Sports Grid that you don't know about. If it weren't for Joe, Joe's done so much to make sure that Sports Grid stayed on air during this quarantine, and so has Greg Sussman. So they have been a huge part in Sports Grid continuing during this pandemic. And, then Jared every day. Now it's just the two of us doing the morning after, because the working online and doing all the Skype, it's just better to do 2 people per show instead of 3 or 4.
Oh, so you guys don't do like Zoom calls, or just only Skype for the shows?
We use Skype. It just seems like Skype has a higher quality of video than Zoom for TV purposes, because we have to have high definition video. It can't just be, grainy, bad quality. So we do a lot of videos through Skype. There's a lot of other things that we have to use to make this all come to fruition, but Skype's the conferencing call that we use.
Okay, interesting. Because I'm missing this show, the live shows right now, as a fan of yours and all of you guys, and I'm hoping this coronavirus can go away pretty soon. But I think we're gonna be stuck in the house for a while now, until end of May, I think, or June. So I'm just like, for my podcast, I come up with ways to talk about sports, even though we have no sports. But let's get to the NFL draft. I know you're a big Ravens fan. And they're loaded. Your team is loaded. I can't explain how your defense is dangerous. By the way, how can they make room for all these defensive players? Because I feel like all these players are starter caliber, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, the thing with the Baltimore Ravens is every player that they got through the NFL draft is a player that they needed. They needed more linebackers, especially stud linebackers, and that's what they got in Patrick Queen at LSU. The Ravens' pass rush really struggled last year, so that's kind of what their focal point was on the defensive side of the ball, because that was the weakest point in their defense last year for sure, was the pass rush. Then when you get to the second round and you see one of the top 5 running backs on the board in Ohio State's J.K. Dobbins, the Ravens felt why not take the next best player on the board? Nonetheless, the Ravens needed a running back because if Mark Ingram gets hurt towards the end of the regular season, just as he did last year, where Mark Ingram was not at full health for the playoffs, which I think did end up hurting the Ravens in that divisional round game against Tennessee, then you can help them split the workload because J.K. Dobbins can catch balls out of the backfield. Even though Mark Ingram can do both as well, Dobbins can at least take a little bit of the load off. And I think he is a little bit of a higher caliber running back than some of the other running backs out of the Ravens backfield last year, such as Gus Edwards. So I think that those two picks were really solid. They also got Malik Harrison, another linebacker out of Ohio State, who's a big help. So I think that it's not about how they're going to fit the pieces into place. It's just hoping that these pieces come to fruition.
Yeah. Because now, what were your reaction? What was your reaction when you guys traded for Calais Campbell? That was a big get for you guys.
Yeah. Speaking of that pass rush, that's exactly what that was about. Because the Ravens have said it time and time again. Not getting to the quarterback was a big issue for them last year. They were one of the worst at it in the league, which is very weird because they're a top-notch defense. They were a top 10 defense last year, yet in the pass rush category, they were bottom 10. The Ravens getting Calais Campbell adds to that a ton. Also, the Ravens with Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger was hurt last year. The Ravens didn't have to face the Steelers quarterback either of the games that they played Pittsburgh in last year. This year, it's a whole new story. If you can't get to Ben Roethlisberger, your odds are you're losing the game.
Right. Yeah, so before we get to any more of the draft, do you think Lamar Jackson can take the next level as a quarterback? Obviously, he has the pieces around him on defense, but on offense, I feel like you guys are lethal on offense too, by the way, a fast speed team. Do you think Lamar Jackson can take the next level as a quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, you're only looking at a small sample size. You see him for 2 years, and realistically a year and a half. He played for half a season his first year that he was on the field. Then this 2019 season was Lamar Jackson's first full season as the number one quarterback. This is his second full season as the Ravens' main quarterback with no competition with another one like he had with Joe Flacco a couple of years ago. This is Lamar Jackson's offense. You get another year of Marquise Brown at wide receiver. Remember, it was just his rookie year this past year. Then you add J.K. Dobbins, who's a pass-catching running back. You get another year of Mark Andrews. The only thing that I'm worried about with Lamar Jackson is the Madden curse.
Right. That's funny.
I hope not. I mean, you saw last year we saw Patrick Mahomes win the MVP, yet he didn't win the Super Bowl. And then the next year he won the Super Bowl but didn't win the MVP. So I'm okay with that.
So now let's get. I'm a big Dallas Cowboy fan, so I'm going to bring this. So what do you think of our draft? I feel like we hit on everything.
Yeah, no, I think that the Cowboys did well. I think that you would know better than anyone else. How'd you feel about CeeDee Lamb being the one they drafted?
At first, I didn't expect him to fall that far. And I just want to say thank you to the Raiders and the Jets, by the way, because I was worried that the Jets was going to take him at 11, and I was worried that the Raiders will take him there. But
as soon as I saw that there was an offensive lineman still on the board for the Jets at 11, I had a very funny feeling the Jets would go offensive lineman.
Yeah, and knowing the Raiders, they always screw up their picks. But I like Henry Ruggs, but he's only a speedster to me. I think he reminds me of Darius Haywood-Bay. I'm not saying he's going to be a bust, but I'm just saying he reminds me of Darius Haywood-Bay. But Jerry Jones was smart for once. He went for best player available. Forget about the knees. He said he's in his yacht. I think he should be in his yacht from now on when we had the draft because
you like that? Yacht?
Yeah, I love the yacht. I think he should be in there for the next season. Yeah, in my opinion, I think that helped. I think I'm not saying the yacht helped out. I think he got lucky because to have Trayvon Diggs to fall at 51 too, to get him at 51, that's another big get. I think, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys, I think, made the smart move in going best player available with their wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb, who's the top-rated receiver in this big wide receiver class. And yeah, as you mentioned, then they ended up going to the defensive side of the ball, which is where I thought initially that the Dallas Cowboys would be going anyway in this draft, would be defense, until you see, CeeDee Lamb there. I'm just curious as to how the Dallas Cowboys are going to utilize another wide receiver, because they already have a pretty loaded receiving core. However, I'm glad that the Cowboys eventually ended up addressing the defensive backs problem.
Yeah. So, what do you think of Trayvon Diggs as a player? Do you think he needs more development, or is he ready to be a starter here?
I think he's ready to be a starter. He played for Alabama, which is important because it makes, if there's any easier transition, it's coming from Alabama. Mm-hmm. And, I think that they got lucky with being able to get him. Many projected him to be a first-round pick. He just ended up falling to the second round. I think Diggs is a first-round defensive back, and I think that he will fit perfectly into the Dallas Cowboys secondary.
So now I want to switch to Gabe's team. He's a big Bills fan, and I think he's
really happy. He's really happy with the Bills.
Okay, so I'm sure he has. I'm sure that he's excited for the season. But with them getting Stephon Diggs first at the receiver position.
Speaking of Trayvon Diggs, there's his brother, right?
Yep.
No, I think that Gabe's really happy. Actually, Jared and I are really high on the Bills in the futures market right now. They were at 30-1 at one point, and I think that's what Jared got them at. And now they're, I think, 27-1 or 23-1. But there's really good value on the Bills to win the Super Bowl, which we always stress on Sports Grid and on the morning after, that it doesn't necessarily mean that we're betting on the Bills to win the Super Bowl, which would, of course, be great for your bet. It's more if the Bills start playing really well and they get to the halfway point in the season and those odds at 27-1 drop down to 10-1, you made a good bet because you got it at really good value. Then you hope that the Bills could even win the division, get a first-round bye, make the playoffs, have home field advantage of some sort, and then you can try to hedge your bet out by the conference championship. And that's when you know that you made a really good bet if you could get the Bills at really good value. With the addition of Stephon Diggs, with Josh Allen getting another year under center, with another running back joining that running back backfield with Devin Singletary as they've picked up Zach Moss in the draft out of Utah, I think that the Bills, with having very little amount of draft picks, because of the Stephon Diggs deal, they did a really good job. They got a safety that was supposed to be a first-round pick, ends up being, a second rounder, which, they still got their guy. I think that the Bills did a really good draft.
So, boy, are you surprised that they drafted a quarterback since they have Josh Allen, Jake Fromm?
No, you know what? They got him in good timing. In fact, it was way late. The odds did not project Jake Fromm or Jacob Eason to go as late as either of them did. I think that, if Fromm was there when they were selecting, God forbid Josh Allen gets hurt, at least you have a little more depth at the quarterback position. And Jake Fromm's one of those players that if there was no one else that caught your eye on the board at the time that you drafted him, then you're not really investing too much into him. So if he works out, great. If he doesn't work out, oh well.
So before we go further, where did you have the Dallas Cowboys at?
In what?
The Super Bowl?
I'm not betting on the Dallas Cowboys to win the Super Bowl. But it's more about looking at it in the sense of odds. That's what we're looking at. It's not as if we're saying, I think the Bills are my favorite to win the Super Bowl. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when you look at the odds and you see really good value because the Bills are, let's say the Bills are underpriced. So right now they're at 27-1. Well, the Dallas Cowboys are at 17-1. So that's a big difference right there. I think that the Buffalo Bills at 27-1 are very undervalued because I think that at the halfway point in the season, we could see the Bills with maybe 1 to 2 losses at most. And they could be 6-2. They could be 7-2. Right. That value is going to skyrocket to 14-1 if the Bills are in the lead of their division and the Patriots are doing terribly. Because if you want to compare the division, the Patriots are at 23-1. So the Bills, they're saying, have less of a chance to make the Super Bowl than the Patriots, who don't even know who their quarterback is going to be by week 7 of the season. They think it's Jarrett Stidham right now to be the Patriots quarterback. However, he could be a disappointment, and the Patriots could bench him by week 6 or 7. With that said, the Buffalo Bills are probably not benching Josh Allen.
Yeah.
The same thing goes for your Cowboys. The Cowboys with Dak Prescott, they know who their quarterback is, which is why I think because of the receiving core, because of the great linebackers that they have, because they helped up their secondary, now I think that the Cowboys have a lot of value at 17-1. It's just I think the Cowboys aren't going to be so challenged in their own division. You're going to see some other teams come out stronger. I think there's just better teams out there that you could find more value on who are a better dark horse than the Dallas Cowboys.
So thoughts on this the Gronk coming out of retirement and going to the Buccaneers? Thoughts on that and playing with Tom Brady again?
I think it's great television. Jared and I were actually talking about it on the morning after for Rob Gronkowski to be the comeback player of the year. It's at plus 300, which is pretty good value. We've seen a little bit of a trend in the comeback player of the year awards. It's a little bit of injury has to do with it. By that, I mean, like Ben Roethlisberger's the favorite to win the comeback player of the year because he hurt his elbow. But Ryan Tannehill won comeback player of the year because even though he had a minor injury at the end of 2018, the storyline of him coming back, starting halfway through the season with the Titans, leading them to the AFC Championship game, that whole story in itself was it's like people love a good story. So in my opinion, I think someone like a Rob Gronkowski rejoining Tom Brady, he's going to be in the headlines every week. If Gronk catches a touchdown, it's going to be headlines for the whole week.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be great television. Gronk's always a fun time. There's 3 tight ends on that roster with Cameron Brate and O.J. Howard. Then you have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. That's lethal for Tom Brady. The only thing that's concerning me with Tom Brady is his arm strength to get downfield to someone like a Chris Godwin.
Are you concerned that they didn't address the running back position?
They did address the running back.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. It was, he wasn't like a top-notch, I'd have to remember his name. He wasn't a top-notch running back, but they still addressed the position. He wasn't one of the top 4, but they did address it. I'm trying to remember his name. I don't know why I'm blanking on it. Let's see. Was it Keyshawn Vaughn? Yeah, I think that's who it is. Keyshawn.
Oh.
Yeah, Keyshawn Vaughn. So he went to Vanderbilt. And so the Tampa Bay Buccaneers drafted him with like the 2nd or 3rd pick in the draft. He's going to complement Ronald Jones well. They're both very hard-nosed running backs, but at least Ronald Jones doesn't have to share the load, and Vaughn's going to have a real chance to even try to surpass Ronald Jones as the number 1 back if Jones can't continue to sustain what he did towards the end of last year where he was pretty mediocre.
Right. So before I let you go, I got a couple of rapid-fire questions for you and like a couple of hot takes.
Okay.
So do you think CeeDee Lamb could be the next Hopkins?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I would say maybe not be able to have 0 drops in a season, but I think he could be a top 15 receiver.
Who's funnier, Gabe or Joe?
Oh, Gabe's funnier. Love Joe, though.
Who was your role model growing up?
Derek Jeter.
Derek Jeter. Favorite food?
Oh, either mac and cheese or penne alla vodka.
Favorite? Who is your favorite hip hop artist, old school and currently now?
Okay, old school. I love Boyz II Men. Now my favorite hip hop or like pop.
Oh, hip hop.
I'll have to get back to you, but Boyz II Men takes the cake for me. That's like R&B, but it's like R&B, but whatever. Yeah, something like that.
Favorite thing to do outside of your work?
I love to exercise and I love to lay on the beach.
Favorite sports movie?
Ooh, Waterboy.
That's a classic. That's a classic.
Or Dodgeball for like real comedy purposes.
Right.
But if you want to go like real sport, then Waterboy.
Favorite non-sports movie?
Ooh, The Hangover.
Hangover. Oh, that's my favorite too. I watched all three of them.
I love The Hangover. I could watch it all the time.
Yeah. So this next question means a lot to me because I've been asking all my guests that come on the show about this question and about the late Kobe Bryant. So I've been getting everybody's perspective on what he meant to them. So what did Kobe mean to you? What does Mamba mentality mean to you?
Well, he was an icon. He still is. He's a legend to the sport of basketball. I think that I have to be honest, I wasn't the biggest basketball fan growing up. So if someone, like to me, Derek Jeter was kind of how Mamba mentality is for many people who love basketball. But for what Kobe Bryant was able to do for the sport of basketball and the respect he was able to gain, nonetheless, his empowerment of women around sports and the WNBA, his investment in it, how much he invested in his daughter's success, and he made sure that when he retired that he was a great father to his kids. Nonetheless, he got the helicopter because he wanted to be with his family more. He didn't want to have to sit in that LA traffic all the time. He got the helicopter so he could be to practice and back to be a father. It meant so much to him. But unfortunately, I never got to meet Kobe Bryant. Like, there are a lot of baseball players, some basketball players that I've met. Unfortunately, I haven't met him in person, so I don't have like a story. But what I do know is from what I know from other athletes, they looked up to him as a huge role model. Then you see, we're watching the Michael Jordan documentary now, the 30 for 30 on ESPN, which has been incredible to watch. And I highly recommend everyone watch it because it's a great history lesson. Michael Jordan talks about Kobe Bryant too. And, Kobe Bryant was a competitor. He wanted to win. We see that a lot in the documentary with Michael Jordan and just what it means to be a winner. And that's the Mamba mentality.
Yeah, well said. Last thing here, would you like to say anything to all the frontline people?
Yeah, thank you to everyone for your service. You're doing a great job. Keep up the good work, and everyone and everything will get back to normal soon. We can only hope so much, but being on the front lines is definitely a scary thing, and I want to thank them. I want to thank the people that are helping them, making sure that they're I see people delivering food and masks, and just everything anyone can do to help a little bit is so important.
Yeah, so before I let you go, my cousin and I, we started a GoFundMe page for this, the whole situation. And the link is in my bio on Instagram. When you get a chance, if you don't mind, you donate a little bit.
Yeah, you got it, Nathan.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been awesome, and you guys do a great job. Keep up with the great work, and I'm looking forward to see you guys again on the live shows, and you and your family stay safe.
Great. Thanks so much, Nathan. You too.